everyone, welcome to ABeam Consulting Indonesia New Normal webinar series. My name is Vini and I will be the host for today's webinar. Today's topic will be about digitalized business process. First of all, I would like to thank all of you to join our last webinar today. And before we start, I would also like to remind you that during the session, you will be able to input your questions by typing in the Q&A box that you see on the bottom corner of your Zoom screen. And we will go through the questions if the time allows. You can also choose to ask the question by anonymous or by showing your name. Okay, now I would like to present to you our speaker today. He is Manabu Koga, Director of Strategy and Operations Team of ABeam Consulting Indonesia. He has more than 20 years of experiences in consulting services focusing on trading, corporate business process, ERP, and global roll-in or roll-out project. Okay, now let us welcome Koga-san. Hello, Koga-san.
Hello, Vinny.
How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
Oh, so Koga-san, I heard currently you're focusing on work style innovation, but could you tell us where you're working from right now?
Yes, sure. Actually, I was working in Jakarta, but coming back to Japan due to this COVID situation.
Yeah.
And currently, I'm working in the mountainside in Nagano Prefecture, in the middle of Japan, and similar area like Bandung and Bogo, like this. Oh, sorry. It's not moving. Oh, like this.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Oh, that's very nice. You even have the ocean.
Yeah. Especially during in summer season in Japan, like in August until September. So it was really tough to work in Tokyo because it is very hot. It's more than like 35 degrees, some days 36 and 37 degrees. So working in the cool, wonderful mountain view environment was very comfortable and also contribute much better working performance as well.
That's good.
And yeah, and also many learnings and findings working in full remote work environment because working with mostly the people in Indonesia.
Yeah.
So today I will talk about this kind of work style changes, focusing to the digitalized business process.
Okay, then in that case, I would like to pass the mic to you. But first of all, I think you're not showing your camera right now, so I would kindly ask you to turn it on.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, okay, we can see you now.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
I'm not sure
thank you so much.
is the reason, but this I will start my presentation.
Okay.
Okay, so here is the agenda for today. So I will very quickly walk through what is happening in many companies or people's life in general. And then I will explain about today's main agenda, digitalized business process. So the key message from me is the work style and mindset change will be the key point to shift to the digitalization. So let me start my presentation. So I think many of you have already saw this kind of time frame, which shows the stage of how the human being will correspond towards a new normal. Responsive, adaptation, and new normal. When we think about what was happening around April this year in Jakarta or similar situation in Tokyo as well, but emergency measures and the strict restrictions started, and suddenly our normal daily life changed, like cannot go to shopping, eat in the restaurant, cannot go to the gym, and so on. But after the strict restriction passed by, people start to get used to surviving this pandemic circumstances. And now we are in the middle of this adaptation stage. So many many new goods, services, or changes are coming up to us every day. and we are adapting to live in this world, but nobody can predict when it will be end. But now we are moving forward to the new normal. When we have a look at how the companies correspond through these three stages, many companies take immediate actions in the responsive stages, such as implementing online meeting softwares, tighten collections, cost reductions, and postpone no urgent investment, and stop the recruitment, and so on. But what is happening right now in this adaptation stage is that some of the company start taking drastic action to change the company operation and the business model itself. In terms of operating model, online-based company operation will be continuously changed. And many company CEO is still focusing more to strictly manage and change the cost management scheme and reducing the budget, changing the cash conversion cycle. And from now on, I assume large-scale merger and acquisition will happen in all over the world to survive this new normal world. So, meaning that we seriously need to consider and take action towards the new normal. So let's have a look at some of the trends of people's behavior and mindset changes in this social distancing world. In this slide, we have done the analysis of people's mobility movement and created this chart utilizing the Google COVID-19 Community Mobility Report data source. As you can see in this chart, the percentage of the people's mobility movement decreased around 60% during April and May. But after that, around 20% movement is continuing. So what we can see from this chart is that people's behavior will not change rapidly and cannot expect that mental momentum will not easily change. And this situation will continue for a while. So let's have a look at one more trend of human behavior. So as you can see in this graph, around 20 to 40% people think using home delivery or do the shopping through the online store. And also in the below parts, you can see almost 30% of people think that it will be less frequent to do the shopping by visiting the store or shopping malls. So meaning that many consumers strongly think to avoid physical contact to buy something. And we think this trend will continue for several years maybe. So as everyone can imagine, especially in shopping malls and food service industries, business model is rapidly changing in this adaptation stage. So there is some of the actual business case, but I will not explain in detail of each company's case, but many global retail companies like Zara, Sainsbury, and Starbucks, their business model is rapidly shifting to e-commerce space or smart store or on-the-go shopping style. So this is what is happening right now in many companies and what the human behavior is changing. So under these circumstances, we plan to do this webinar event. So we have conducted 5 webinar sessions already in these 2 weeks. And today is the last session. But we have covered most of the service offering in our webinar, which shows in this slide. So most of the services actually consulting service which we are doing before COVID-19. But the top one, Agile Work from Home, is the newly developed service and quite close to today's topic in terms of more utilizing the application or software or work efficiently in work from home circumstances. And automation, RPA, and other digital transformation solution will be one of the core business area towards the new normal. So I will come back to this topic again, but if there are any interesting topics, everyone's feel free to contact ABeam Consulting in Indonesia anytime. Okay, so I will move to the next agenda. So I will start my presentation of today's main topic, digitalized business processes. So social distancing recognized us. There are still many physical things still remaining in each business process step and not easily digitalized. So the first point we highlight was that many offline process meaning the manual work outside of the system. This kind of manual offline work exists in many steps. The second point is that the e-signing or e-contract process is not well utilized in many companies. Even some company try to shift to the e-signing or e-contract process. We need agreement and cooperation from the customer or supplier side. So digitalization in this area is not widely used even under these COVID circumstances. Okay. For example, if the company implemented a e-payment system, some of the company I actually heard that they implemented the e-payment system due to this COVID-19 situation, but the person in charge still keeping the payment voucher with evidence in paper documents. This kind of things is happening in many companies. So due to this kind of reasons, accounting department people have to go to the office to ensure and confirm the payment process. And actual case, what is happening in many companies is that like the sales general managers must go to the office because he must do the signing process in physical documents like sales contract. I often hear many sales managers go to office once a week or even more. So this we mentioned about these two major action required points. So first point is it's really important to review and define more strict business process standardization and visualization. Second point is to accelerate more paperless transition and change management. So this point we will highlight and I will explain more detail in the later slide. So under the work from home environment, many companies are struggling to work productively, like I explained in the previous slide. So in this slide, we divided the process and operation in three categories and look at where will be the bottleneck factors to work in work from home situation. So I will explain from the left-hand side. ERP and e-workflow, this kind of system established area is quite easily managed, even if it need to be correspond remotely, because every user can access to the system and do the operation from home when the Wi-Fi network is secured. But the problem we will face in remote work is mostly number 2 and 3 business process area. So when we have a look at the light tools like Excel or email, I would say this kind of work is a typical unstandardized process which is managed by each person in charge outside of the system. For example, each individuals are doing individual checking between like a shipping notice from customer and invoice in the Excel. And those works are manually. So mostly this kind of Excel is managed in the local PC. So if this kind of task exists a lot, then it means that there are high risk of like cannot find out a mistake or missing some necessary check. So again, this kind of unstandardized or unvisualized process step will become more high risk of mistakes or failure under the remote work circumstances because it's really hard to find out what each person in charge is doing in detail. And number 3 is the paper documents. For example, even if you're using PDF file format, I see in many cases that they're sending each other the physical documents in parallel. So it will take very long time to complete the signing process between the company. So meaning that we could not remove the inefficiency by remaining this kind of physical paper process under the remote work circumstances. So we would say this category number 2 and 3 are the main bottleneck point of working productivity and efficiency in work from home. So let me add some information. So this circle chart, source information is coming from our actual project case, which we have done the business process assessment and improvement project in Indonesia. And actually we did this project remotely. So as you can see in this chart on the right-hand side, more than 60% is the tasks area related to number 2 and number 3, which I explained as inefficient point. So typical case when the client will face to this kind of situation is when the business model is gradually changing due to the long business relationship with specific clients. So people are just doing the same thing, but gradually changing. Or in sometimes a person in charge had been changed. So this is in this kind of case, this will happen. And the other case is this kind of case happens is when the business itself is growing rapidly. So many transactions and the variation of the transaction will increase, and then each person in charge try to do some other manual work outside of the system. So the checking process becomes very complex, and specific person in charge is struggling to do the checking process itself. And then nobody is double checking. That's what is happening. So this means that not only inefficient, but also there are potential risk of causing mistake or missing transactions, or sometimes missing the approval steps. So what we have done in this project was that we redesigned the Excel check format, which originally they have several separate Excel, but we made it in one worksheet to be able to make the check more simple. So important point is to visualize and share this information and built into the standard business process. So that's what we actually done in the project in Indonesia. And let's think about why we cannot reduce the paperwork. So one of the typical human behavior is that people will start taking action when receiving the physical document, such as invoice or payment approval form, or like in this slide image, when someone recognizes the documents came in to the inbox case like this. So this will be the first steps of the trigger to start the business process. People start working. But basically, I would say it should be the same when someone receives the approval request in the workflow system, in the work list. But people want to check with the evidence together physically. So that I see that's what is happening in many companies. And same as secured filing, many people like filing using clear files, Dodge files, and other stationary goods. So people feel relieved or maybe did a good job when the documents are neatly stored in the drawer like this image. So let me explain about paper documents treatment a bit more detail in this slide. So in many companies, the documents used in the core operation, like purchase orders, sales orders, invoice, such kind of documents are treated digitalized sometimes and managed paperless. But on the other hand, contract-related documents such as master agreement, price agreement, and NDA, or other specific documents which need to satisfy the requirement of like accounting or tax regulation or other legal related documents are mostly still paper and not digitalized. But recently, I like to show the simple image of the e-contract tools. But there are lots of e-contract documents or e-document support application exists in the market. So these are the two mandatory requirements which need to be strictly secured in this kind of application. So first point is the proof of signer identification. So each individual signer need to be strictly specified, prevent from spoofing and impersonation by the other person. Second point is the detection of falsification. This is very fundamental requirement, but of course, any documents cannot be overwritten, modified, and strictly need to be secured. So most of the applications have this authentication and encryption solution and very strictly secured. So actually, I myself experienced using this kind of in-contract tools this year, as I need to extend my contract in ABeam Consulting. So I was luckily offered to extend the contract 1 year. So I used the DocuSign application for my contract. So when I start the signing process in DocuSign, so I have to log in using my company email and the login security with specific password to specify the individual, meaning myself, and then log into the documents. So there are multiple steps to specify the individuals. And then I can stamp my sign in the system. So what I want to highlight is that this kind of technology is nothing new actually, and then already exists before COVID pandemic situation. But now, under these circumstances, this kind of application is widely used in many companies. So we are not an IT vendor, so we will not sell or propose specific application, but many applications are now widely using I would say all over the world under this COVID pandemic situation. So this is just I introduced. This is very common tools widely using the market. So, all right, then I'm going to. So, sorry. Let me continue my explanation. So again, I like to highlight to these 3 points. So first point is re-standardization of the business process. So as the times go by, the detailed procedures and the process steps, especially in this remote work situation, it is really difficult to monitor and review each process step in detail. So small changes will easily happen. So it is very important to monitor and review the process periodically. So we actually did this kind of business process assessment remotely, as I explained in the previous slides. So we can support and to assess and standardize the business process itself. Second point is to utilize the tools and application. So I assume everyone is start using the communication tools such as Teams or Zooms, and you're joining to the webinar today via Zoom. So I heard, but before the COVID-19 situation, I heard many voice in Indonesia that many project member does not prefer to conduct the meeting online. But now it is becoming a standard tool. So I think it's mostly came from the mindset first. An important point is that we seriously need to consider that the world situation is changing and we ourselves have to change our mindset how to work efficiently in our daily work. Third point is implement e-contract or e-signing system. When I have a look at the market in Japan, for example, so Japan, I would say the working culture is very traditional and paper-based working style. And in Japan, there is a special stamp which we call hanko. Hanko is a specific stamp for each individual persons. So everyone use this hanko to stamp to every document. So many people are thinking it is impossible to reduce a paper. But now this kind of e-contract application is rapidly used also in Japan. So I believe this way we will also come to Indonesia in near future. So key message for me is that important point is not just taking action one by one, but take action combination with these solutions, like I pointed out in these 3 points. So by taking action in combination, the business process quality will be improved and able to work more efficiently, and we can more utilize the digital solutions. So we, ABeam Consulting, is a consulting firm. So I would say our value and differentiating with other IT vendors is that we can support the client in combination with this kind of services. At the same time, like business process assessment, change management, e-business process implementation. This is just an example, but when we think about implementing the e-contract system and you ask for some support to the specific vendors, I assume it will finish just by just installing the e-contract system and could have initial setup and simple training support like that. But when we support our client, we will work together with a client to be able to change and improve the business process front to end and try to improve the business process operation or the client business model itself. So if you are interested to have this kind of services, we are very welcome to support you. So please take contact to us anytime. So that's all for my presentation.
Thank you
So
very much,
I'll look at the
Ogasan.
Q&A. Okay.
Okay, so we have reached the Q&A session. Can I read the questions for you?
Okay, thank you, Vinny.
Okay, so the first one is from an anonymous attendee. Really interesting. We need this kind of topic. What's the difference between new operating model before outbreak and after outbreak era?
What's this is quite general question. What's the difference between let me think a little bit. New operating model. Okay, I think it's really depends on the each industry or each company business model. But okay, let me think and reply this question after the seminar. So I think I need to think about several scenarios. It's because it's depend on the cases.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is also from an anonymous attendee. The question is, does ABeam provide like macro Excel creation service?
Uh, I would say yes, but um, in this presentation, I explained about the actual project case, and we actually created the Excel macro. But I would like to add some comment that that is not our real value and specialty area. But if it's necessary for the client, we sometimes create Excel as well.
Okay, thank you for your answer. The next one is also from anonymous. I like the e-contract part. Is there any difference e-contract application between several industry?
No, I would say most of the e-contract application is widely used in the many industries. So I think if you try to see, for example, for the DocuSign, so there's a lots of company. So and many industries are using the DocuSign, for example. So I would say it's not specific for the industry.
Hmm, okay, thank you. And one question is from Ali Rizky Pratama. He said, "Hi Gogasan, my opinion that digitalization will be the most value added when we can embed it in the whole stream, from suppliers to customers. What is your advice to give incentive for supplier and customer to change their way of work?"
So I think most important point is we can save the time because as I explained in this presentation, so when we treat the physical paper and send each other, so it really takes times. And also when we use the papers, that's also the cost. And to keep the document, it's also the cost. So of course we can reduce the cost in totally. So and I heard some of the new information that there is a new law that the stamp can also be digitalized. So then maybe that's also one of the cost reduction factor. So I've summarized the points. This we can save the time and we can save the cost. So I think there's a big merit when we see in the long term. Okay,
Okay,
so it's almost time, already past 4 minutes. So thank you very much, everyone. So I'd like to follow up the other question I have. So shall we close this webinar session, Vinny?
yes, sure. Okay, so thank you so much everyone once again for joining our last webinar today. So this marks the end of ABeam Consulting Indonesia New Normal webinar series. And we also have materials that you can download by scanning this QR code that you see on your screen, or please take a screenshot if you are on mobile right now. And finally, we will also be sending a short survey to your email after this webinar. And we hope to also hear your feedback as well so that we can improve for the next time. Okay, thank you so much everyone once again for joining, and I hope to see you in our next possibly webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Hope we can see meetup in the Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kogasan.
Thank you.